How do you know how to set the right budget for you on Meta ads? On the one hand, you want to spend enough to where you get the data to optimize your ad account. You got to spend money to make money. We've all heard that. But on the other hand, you don't want to just waste money down a drain, never to be seen again in the name of getting data, and you don't even get the data. This is the number one question that I get asked probably is, what budget should I be spending? Should I spend more? Should I spend less? I have 6 things that I look at whenever I come into a client account to determine exactly that. I'm going to share it with you in this video. But real quick, the first time that I ever went live on ads, I actually spent way too much money. I spent $600 in 2 days. I had come from the ad world, but I'd never managed my own ads. And I was like, oh, I know this. You got to spend money to make money. I wasted a lot of money. I learned things that I could have learned with so much less money. And that was a big lesson to me with budget, that it's not always about spending more. So let's dive in. The first thing is, for most people, your ads won't just magically work when you set them live. I've worked with so many different brands, and over the years, maybe 5 have really come out of the gate with super strong ROI. For everyone else, you're gonna have to test your ads, your messaging, your ad creatives, your landing pages, your flows, optimizing your checkout process, all kinds of things, right? As you're taking those actions and then seeing what has a positive impact on your sales, you're going to follow that trail toward your ROI goal. And once you get to your ROI goals, then you can start scaling your account and make real money. I'm gonna level with you. This process, usually when you start from scratch, takes about 12 months in total. For myself, when I start ads for a new program, I absolutely zoom out 12 months and think, okay, I have to survive testing ads for 12 months. What will my budget be? Now, you don't have to be so extreme if you don't want to. In my opinion, if you can spend your budget for 12 months, that almost makes your success with ads guaranteed. But if you can spend your budget for 3 months or 6 months without having to see a strong return, and you're not going to be going homeless or not paying your bills, your chance of success from paid ads is way higher. So here's the learning. When you set your budget, the longer you can spend that budget without having to see a strong return, the better your chance of success with that. So it's better to start with a lower budget and work your way up to a higher budget as you go along. The second thing is related to the first, but this is about stress. I see a lot of people really stressed with their paid ads budgets, and what they don't know is this actually hurts them in the end. Because paid ads takes a lot of iteration. It takes a lot of looking at things and tinkering with things and tweaking things. And these small actions, if you're super stressed about your budgets, you're not going to be able to do them very well. So the less stressed you are, the better. It's so much better to spend $1,000 a month without stress, where you can really dig in and understand how things are working and think about it and creatively problem solve, than to be super stressed and wondering what's going to happen. And paid ads, just like organic content, for example, you really have to keep doing it for a while and be bad at it for a while before it kind of flips in your favor and you're able to start seeing results from those actions. The other thing I see here is, a lot of times if you're working with an ad agency, for example, maybe they've told you what they think you should spend, and they're like, you got to pay to play, you got to spend money to make money. And that's kind of true. But if you're a business owner, you really do know more than you think you do. If you feel like you're overspending, it's one of 2 reasons. You either are overspending, or there's something about the strategy that you just don't understand. And it is important to really get behind that strategy, because again, if you're super stressed, then it's not the right spirit to make that happen. So we've talked about when you should spend less, but what about when you should spend more? So the algorithm, as you know, needs to receive events so that it can start observing who is taking certain actions and how can we find more people who look like them. So for example, who is adding to cart and assuming that those add to carts are going to then purchase, how do we find more people who do that? Or who is filling out their lead information, and how can we find more people who will do that? So that's the algorithm's job. That's what it's constantly trying to do for you. And if it doesn't receive any information, like it's asking, hey, who's doing this? If there are very few people there, it's not going to be able to understand the full picture. So the more events that you can pass through to the algorithm so that it understands what's happening, the better. But just like I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to have all purchases coming through or all leads coming through. There are other events like video views. So if people are viewing your ad, that is a signal to the algorithm. Or if people are landing on your landing page, that's a signal. But obviously the signal signals that are closest to the purchase, help the algorithm find you somebody who gets closest to the purchase. So purchases are the best. If you have purchase data coming back to the algorithm, it's going to be really good at being able to go and find other people who will purchase. So my general rule of thumb is that you're not spending enough if you don't get at least one purchase per day. Now, you can say, yeah, but is that on the ad level? Is it on the ad set level? Is it on the campaign level? Here's the thing. If your budget is super, super small, then just challenge yourself to get one per day per campaign. But if your ad budget is a little bit bigger and you feel more comfortable, then you can move to the ad set level and try to get one purchase per day per ad set. And then obviously the ad level is best case scenario if you get at least one per day. Now, if you're a brand who can afford to spend a little bit more, then obviously more than this is ideal. If you could get 10 conversions, whatever that is, if it's a lead or a purchase, if you could get 10 of those per day per ad, for example, golden. You're going to get such good data, and the algorithm is going to be so good at going and getting you more people. The last thing that I'll say about this is that if you don't have enough budget to get all of the events and you're like, Bridget, I don't even have enough budget to get one purchase per day, even on the campaign level. This happens a lot, for example, if you have a higher ticket item, and that's okay. So the action item here is to get as many events as possible populating into the algorithm. So if you can't get at least one purchase per day, what can you get? And how could you structure your campaigns to feed the algorithm with more data? So one thing that I did, for example, whenever I started ads for a program that I was doing over the summer, I optimized for a purchase, but I built my audience based on people who had viewed my organic Instagram videos. So it was a way of me, even though I knew I wasn't going to get the data in from the algorithm, I built my audience based on as much data as I could. So there are workarounds for this, but it's just easier if you have the budget to spend to get at least one purchase per day, and then the more the merrier. Number 4, let's talk more about that scenario where you don't have enough budget to actually get the events that you need. And maybe you don't have the experience to build these elaborate audiences or what have you that I have, right? So what do? Advertising has been working for 100 years now without so much data. We as advertisers, we're obsessed with data now. We're obsessed with tracking. But when you think about it, all of this came about really in the last 10 years. So it's okay if you don't have enough data for the algorithm to really help you. But what you need, if that's the case, is to really care about your messaging, to really obsess over what you put out into the world. And you can obsess over things like even how many people stop their scroll. You can measure this. This is the hook rate. You can obsess over your content just like you would on organic Instagram where you're not paying anything, right? You try to make your content better and better so that more and more people will see it. Well, that's going to be the name of the game on the ad platform. And you can do that even with tiny, tiny budgets, even with $1 a day or $5 a day. So I just want to encourage you, don't worry if you don't have the budget to get tons and tons of data. You can take a more traditional approach, which is more of an organic approach that works well, but you will just have to care extra hard about your ad creatives and messaging and testing that and seeing what works as you're putting that into the world. Number 5 is you don't want to just spend your money, you want to spend it efficiently. So when you're picking your budget, you want to make sure that you're not going to learn the same thing over and over and over with that spend. My classic example comes from when I first set my ads live. I basically spent close to $600 in 2 days, and I learned something that I could have learned with $100 of spend. This is true if you're going to spend $10,000 or $2,000. Could you learn the same thing? Could you figure out that, oh, this audience is better than this one, or this ad is better than this one, and really you just spent way more money to learn that thing? So imagine if you have 2 ads and they both get 50% of your spend and you spend $10K, then you spent $5K on an ad that's not fully optimized. You could have spent $2,000 to learn that same thing. That's very simplified because in theory you should always be running 2 to 3 ads, but you get the point, right? You could learn the same thing with a high budget that you learn with a low budget, and sometimes it's actually more efficient to spend less money to learn those things. So if you're spending enough money to get the data that you want, if you're spending enough to get those purchases and you want to do some tests, don't try to test too much at once, because here's the thing, data is only as good as you can actually react to it. So if you're getting 10 data points but you can only react to 2 of them, then you should just pay to get the 2 data points, right? Let me give you an example. If you are testing headlines and ad creatives and audiences and you're testing 2 landing pages, but you don't have the time to actually execute new versions of all those things in the next 2 weeks, for example, then you should focus your budget on 1 or 2 where you can actually get that data back and execute new versions of those things. So when you're picking the budget for you, just make sure to think about what data you're getting back and do you need that much budget to get that data? Number 6 is probably my favorite because very few people look at their budgets logically. So I'm going to give you an example of myself. I have this course coming out eventually. I keep on saying it's coming out and I keep on delaying it. Eventually I'm going to launch some courses. I'm going to price them around $47 and I'm going to run some ads to them. I expect to have to pay $100 to $150 per course sale. So yeah, you do the math. I'm like losing money on that. But it'll help me grow my brand and get myself out there, right? Imagine if my goal were $25 cost per sale. And I just magically came up with this number that's like, yeah, it would be great to sell a course for $25. I make almost $50, 2x ROI on something that doesn't take me any time. Amazing, right? Well, I know based on cost per clicks in the platform, click-through rates, conversion rates, that's not probably realistic unless I'm super lucky, which I'll let you know, but I don't think I'm going to be. So the point is, I know realistically I'm going to lose money on just that one course. So I'm building out other courses so I can bundle them together and hopefully eventually have an ecosystem that's profitable with ads. The lesson here is that you want to make sure that your goal with ads is realistic. And then you do the work around that, improving your ads, improving your landing page, improving your offer, improving your monetization of the traffic so that you can make money from paid ads. Paid ads is an incredible resource once you figure out what's working well, but you do have to figure that out and that initial process takes work. So when you're setting your budget, make sure that your budget and your goals attached to that budget are actually logical and they're not just wishful thinking based on what would be great if it happened, but more based on data and what is more realistic if it happens. If you need any help just trying to figure out like what your goal should be, you can always message me. I'm always here to chat ad strategies. Those are the 6 things that I think about and I look at whenever I'm setting budget. I hope this is helpful for you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.